What happens when your longtime spouse or partner reveals he or she is in fact gay? We find out right now on It's Your Call. Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lynn Doyle. Our topic today, when your spouse is gay. What would you do if you learned after many years together that your partner's sexual orientation is not what you believed it to be? Would you stay in the marriage for the sake of the children? Would you leave immediately, or maybe try to change the person? Or would you react with compassion with the belief they can't help who they are? Well, my guests today have each lived through this experience and have had a variety of emotions while doing so. Roxanne Cranstover and Sam Cheney will be sharing their stories with us in just a moment. But first, meet Dr. Mary Cromie, whose devastating personal experience with this topic inspired her to write a fact-based novel entitled Left in His Closet. She joins us first this hour. Mary, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
I was moved by the characters in your book, three of whom seem to be a compilation of one Dr. Mary Cromie. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think it is a fair assessment. What I wanted to do when I wrote this book is I did not want to make it my story, because by making it my story, it's very incomplete. So I did research as well and interviewed a number of other women and realized that there were really three different stories here. One of someone who was very happily married, and at the end of their marriage their husband changed. Two, a woman who had a husband who was gay through her entire marriage and she was well aware of it. And the third one was a woman who had a husband who was bisexual. So I wanted the book to represent a much more complete view of what the experience is for straight spouses.
And yet it was your personal experience that inspired you to do the research. And in that research, you were surprised to learn how many other women like yourself are out there.
I was very surprised at that, because this is a topic, regardless of how we feel about homosexuality today, it's a very taboo topic. People don't want to talk about it. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. So therefore, you don't really know where to go to find the appropriate people to have a conversation with.
Were you one of those people who found it difficult to talk about when you were living through it, when you realized that your husband was in fact gay?
Well, I did. I found it very difficult. It happened to me in 1984. Now, if you go back 25 years, you're talking pre-AIDS, and my father was a very old-fashioned man, and I didn't know what to say to people. So I didn't talk about it at all. And as a matter of fact, I would have preferred people to think that I was the problem, rather than having it be my husband leaving me for a man, that I was actually the one who was having an affair. And a number of people said that, and I accepted that.
And you actually perpetrated that so that it would be more acceptable than admitting that your husband was gay. Let's talk about the admission and the revelation and the devastation that followed. Did you have any idea when you were dating or when you were first married that your husband's sexual orientation may not be what you thought it was?
In my situation, no. In my case, my ex-husband and I were very happy. We were high school sweethearts. We got married. We did everything together. We moved to the Chicago area. We went to college together. We did all of those things. And when I started traveling, he started not coming home. And this was about the 8th year of our marriage. And so I thought, oh, he's having an affair. And I knew that he was having an affair. And so I confronted him with it. And I said,
when you say that you know, is it an instinct that women have?
Well, in my case,
were there telltale signs?
There were obvious telltale signs of him coming home at 3 in the morning, disheveled. And so I confronted him with it. And he said, oh, I'm working hard. And he was traveling quite a distance to work, and said he wasn't seeing another woman. And so he was very confusing at that time, and it wasn't even the same person.
When he said, I'm not seeing another woman, he was telling you the truth. But did it ever occur to you, my husband could be seeing another man, or is that just a thought that would never have come into your mind?
It didn't come into my mind at all. And I had to ask myself the question, was the marriage worth saving? And I was trying to save the marriage, and he kept telling me, it's over. There isn't anything you can do about it.
But he didn't tell you right then and there,
Exactly.
it's over because I prefer the company of men.
Right.
And
Yes.
of course, this is a very delicate question, and I know people are wondering it sitting on their couches at home. There were no telltale signs in the bedroom for those 8 years that you were married?
No, but there were at the end. We just
end.
stopped having sexual relations, and there was one night when he tried to have a sexual relationship with me and couldn't, and that's when he brought the divorce papers home. And so we had a lot of arguments around that because at that time I didn't know. And then he got very sloppy, and he decided he had a conversation with someone that I overheard, and that it was totally devastating, totally shocking. I remember feeling as if the elevator had dropped 100 floors, and there I was saying everything he said up to that point made sense. And I knew I couldn't save my marriage. Now, the interesting thing is I didn't tell him I knew.
Why not?
I didn't know what to say. And so I don't know why. I just didn't.
So it made sense to you now, all of the pieces of
That's
the puzzle
right.
seemingly coming together, but you still didn't have the courage, or were you trying to be compassionate and not confronting him with his sexuality?
I think I was in shock. I was in shock. I was looking at this person who had, from the way he was during most of our marriage to now, he had changed. It wasn't even the same person. So I was looking at this person and saying, this is not it. And I wanted to get as far away from him as possible. So I said, I'm not fighting this divorce. We got divorced within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yes.
And
because all the work had already been in
done.
motion.
That reaction of shock is not unusual, folks, as Mary found out in her research, and as we are going to find out as we meet our other guests. But now that you have heard a bit of Mary's story, and believe me, there is still much more to follow, we invite you to tell us if you've had a similar experience or if you know someone who has. And in your mind, is there a so-called ideal way to handle such a revelation? And if you suspected that someone was gay, would you be able to discuss it with the spouse or a potential spouse? If you want to tell us what you think, a couple of ways you can do it. You can email me directly. My email address is on the screen there. It's lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube. We are going to be sharing some of those stories and some callers with you in just a moment. Mary, the shock took how long to wear off before you could resume living your life?
Well, the shock is the initial few months, and then you go into this period of confusion, and you have to shut down because you're asking yourself all these questions about things that you can't make sense of. So it's very much like someone who loses a child or in a very tragic accident.
Because it's a loss.
You have to shut down because there's too many things that are going through your head.
Well, it is, as Mary says, a loss, and it may very well have been the impetus for a manuscript, but she is not alone in what she has gone through. When we come back, we're going to meet a man who learned that his wife was a lesbian and a woman who suspected her husband was gay, only to have him deny it many, many times. Their stories when It's Your Call continues.